This podcast discusses sexual violence and other material listeners may find distressing. Please look after yourself as you listen and feel free to switch off at any point. You can visit withyouwecan.org to find help, but remember to call 000 in emergencies. We're recording on the lands of the Gadigal, where sovereignty was never ceded. We recognise that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples continue to experience the ongoing impacts of colonisation, including disproportionate rates of sexual violence and institutional harm. We pay our respects to elders past and present and commit to advocacy that does not replicate the harms it seeks to address. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Victim survivors live in a constant state of the unknown. I know that because I've lived it. Shrouded in secrecy, silenced by process, we're asked to place our faith in a justice system that was never designed for us, at the most vulnerable moment of our lives. But I won't stand for it. We're cracking this system wide open so you and everyone around you understands what it actually means to navigate the legal system after sexual violence. I'm Sarah Rosenberg, Executive Director of With You We Can, and this is what no one told us. Mia Findlay is a speaker, creator and business owner whose work focuses on feminism, women's safety and the cultural forces shaping women's lives. Through her widely followed platforms across TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, Mia reaches a large international audience with commentary on misogyny and women centering themselves. Mia first built a platform documenting her recovery from anorexia over a decade ago, which led to the creation of Beyond Body, a coaching business supporting people in eating disorder recovery. In recent years, Mia's work has expanded into broader feminist commentary around women's rights and safety. Her videos discussing misogyny and violence against women have reached millions of viewers and sparked widespread online conversations. Mia, I'm so happy that you're here joining me at this very first go of a podcast project. You've made the move to Sydney and you've made the time for me and I am endlessly grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be with you.
So when we talk about sexual violence, the conversation often focuses on individual perpetrators or individual cases, but I want to talk about culture. You are, I just feel, the queen of culture capital. What a lame thing to say, but your platform is incredible. The discussions you engage with and are also targeted by a lot of the time, just give you a wealth of knowledge. So I want to talk about, from your perspective, what is the culture surrounding sexual violence in Australia right now?
I think it's really mixed. I like to, when people say is there any hope here? It's like yes and no. It depends on who we're talking to. I think if you look at how women are talking about it and the conversations which are happening amongst women, especially in social media spaces, but within advocacy, within community building, that gives me a lot of hope. There seems to be this coalition amongst women that has in some way, I think, been engineered by platforms like the one I'm on, TikTok, because TikTok is this very unvarnished presentation of women's lives.
Yeah.
Instagram was always so overly polished and overly produced that it really made women feel bad about each other and kind of separated us. Whereas TikTok is women sitting on the couch telling their stories and giving presentations of their life that we otherwise wouldn't have access to. And that includes some of these experiences, which, unfortunately, so many of us have that commonality. But on the flip side, these platforms and these interactions with men is where the frustration comes in, because that's where these conversations feel like they hit a wall, and there's not a lot of really productive conversation going on. And you'll see that in my responses to men and interactions with men. Not all. I hate to not all men this stuff.
So early on as well.
I know.
Shall we tally them up?
Always the disclaimer, because there are amazing men in my community and there are amazing men in the space doing great work, but they are not the norm. They are the exception. So I have a lot of pretty firm positions about how to bridge that gap and how to make these conversations more productive. And it isn't necessarily that women have more of the work to do. So I think, like I said, there's a mix there is hope in what women are building, but then there is a big deficit and a big vacuum that needs to be filled, and it can only at this stage be filled by men. If we had all the answers, it would be fixed by now.
Amen. Amen. God, done. That's a wrap. already, just on the conversation. Am I right?
Thank you so much for having me.
She's so good.
I'm off.
So one of the things victim survivors encounter start to finish when they disclose or report sexual violence is disbelief. Where do you think the instinct to doubt women, let alone victim survivors, where do you think the instinct to doubt them comes from?
I think it's so multi-layered. I think it's, if there's a lack of acknowledgement of the state of things, then nobody has to reflect on their contribution or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. I think it's also a desire to comfort and soothe yourself into the idea that it can't be that bad, because if it's that bad for all of these people, then I am also potentially at risk. And actually, that's something you and I have had a conversation about before when you came onto my podcast, which is, if we have to look at the state of the world, if we have to look at the reality of things and we can't live in this cognitive dissonance, then A, we have to reckon with what could potentially happen to us if it hasn't happened already, or what could happen to people we love. And yes, right?
Who isn't doing the harming?
Yes. And then we might have to do something.
Yeah.
And the world is really heavy and it's really, really loud at the moment. And so as much as I have a lot of frustrations about certain demographics' lack of willingness to contribute and get involved, I also kind of understand it. Like, the world is really loud and heavy, and it just means that we have to, engage in a way which is not expending energy in a futile way, and keep the conversation going, and keep doors open, but not fall for the idea that it's on us to
totally
incentivize people and make it palatable. And I just refuse to do that, as is fairly evident from what I do. I'm just not going to be nice about these things. And I think we kind of have that in common.
I just feel like engaging with the state of the world or advocacy is not an online shared health project. If it's harming you, that's not useful. There is a way to make engaging with the heaviness of the world right now sustainable.
Yes.
And also that's really hard to get to a state where you can feel that way, because you burn out so quickly. You just pop into the comment sections for 1 second and you're immediately just kind of in a state of disappointment.
Yes.
I don't know, despair.
Yes.
Perhaps
dysregulation.
Dysregulate the D's.
Yes.
DDD.
Dissociation.
Dissociate all of it. It's we need cognitive dissonance to go about our daily lives.
Yes.
And also that's really not useful when this is an intractable problem that affects all of us and requires all of us to care.
Yes.
It's there's so many layers to it, despite even just the taboo of it all, but the widespread epidemic nature of sexual violence and of femicide is just, oh my gosh, waking up every day and just eating it for breakfast. Who wants to do it? Who wants to do it? And we need to do it. So we've got to come up with sustainable ways to engage.
That's right. And everyone's got their piece, and we can't expect everyone to be at the same speed doing the same amount. It's a mosaic. I always refer to advocacy or engagement in any of these issues as a mosaic. And even if you make up this little bit, it's still a necessary piece, and somebody else's piece might be bigger, and then they might fluctuate and change. But I think another reason why disbelief is kind of the go-to is because, I will just probably butchered this quote, so I'm just going to sort of summarize it. The perpetrator is not asking you to do anything.
Judith Herman, love this.
Right? The victim is expecting you to have integrity and to show up. And
share the burden.
Exactly. And to maybe have to have uncomfortable conversations and have uncomfortable reflections even within yourself. Yeah. And so, the perpetrator is just saying, actually, let's not talk about it.
Let's sweep this right under the rug.
Right? Let's have a beer and talk about the footy.
Yeah.
That's a much easier conversation to have than the devastation of this macro level of this issue, but the micro as well, the micro of, your own traumas and your own experiences, and then the statistical overwhelm of how many people it's happening to. So, Yeah, it's path of least resistance.
Totally. Due to that ease of supporting a perpetrator versus the difficulty of supporting a victim,
Yeah.
people often resort to rape myths to justify away bad behaviour or come up with reasons as to why the victim must have done something to uniquely call out the bad behaviour. And then we go on the path down to cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
What do you think are some modern rape myths that we see playing out? I mean, a lot of them are same old in just like, I don't know, new font. But what do you see as like modern rape myths that are playing out online and in your community?
I mean, how many of us have been able to click into whether it's like a TikTok of a news story of a woman who has, experienced any form of violence where the first 10 comments aren't from men saying, well, what did she do?
Yeah.
How did we get here? What happened before this?
I'm just really concerned about men's mental health
Right?
right now. You know what? I actually am concerned about, if they're commenting that, I am concerned about your mental health.
Yeah, it's still a you problem, not a me problem. Still the burden is on you to fix. We're a bit busy.
We're a bit busy.
But the pervasive idea that, there is this context that if we had it, then we just shouldn't be paying attention to what's happening to women, that there is something that she's done to deserve this outcome. And not that anyone can ever come up with one. And even when you engage with them on that, you just go down, as you said, like just this spiral towards cognitive dissonance. And there's no real intent to engage in any kind of productive way. It's just the point of those conversations and those questions is just to get you to the point where you're so exhausted that you're not engaging anymore. The other ones, because it also then speaks to like the perfect victim trope, I think plays into that as well.
I was just going to say perfect victim.
And there's not one. I have never, ever seen a story about a woman who has been a victim of sexual violence, of domestic violence. As I said in the poem that I wrote after Bondi, like you're not even a perfect victim if you're dead. They will talk about what you wore. And I remember when Jill Maher was murdered by Adrian Bailey, who was out on bail for rape and had been incarcerated several times for rape, but was allowed to be out again and again.
So important that you say his name because, so it's usually a woman is just mysteriously murdered or there is harm caused. Full stop. Like we never bring the perpetrator or the person who has harmed into the picture. And so I just love that you straight up said that.
Or when we do, it's because they're the son of a footballer.
Of course. And we need to
really
quote
good at swimming at school.
His swimming time.
Yes.
I was going to say.
Then we're very keen to not only say their names, but to give them qualifiers and descriptors, which are more important than the harm that they've caused, obviously.
Their reputation outweighs
exactly
any of the harm caused.
Yes. But I remember with Jill Maher, there was discussion about the length of her skirt, the fact that she was inebriated, the fact that she was walking home after drinks with colleagues in the dark. And they're never brave enough to say it so explicitly that they're victim blaming. But why do we need to know all these details before we get to that this man was a repeat offender who never should have been out on the street in the first place? So, I think it's just it's easier to talk about that than it is to talk about how unbelievably scary the world can be, And so perfect victim, I haven't come across one yet because it's just an easy explainer.
Yeah. I love, when, why didn't she report? If it was serious, she would have reported. And if she wasn't making it up, she would have reported sooner. Mm-hmm. I love to go, okay, report to who? Let's talk about Sarah Everard.
Yes.
Like who was murdered by a police officer on her way home. I feel like that's always quite an instantaneous, police officers are also men or also people rather who can cause harm, just like everyone else. Well, I mean, not everyone else, but it's a really good stop in your tracks kind of thing. Still struggle with the other things. I mean, ultimately myths about consent and asking for it and promiscuity and just male entitlement generally to a female body, and it's an assumed yes unless there was a kicking, screaming no.
Yeah.
Those ones are still, I mean, in community and in discussion, but in the courtroom, they're still really hard to kick over. It's like, it's a tricky one because it is such an age-old thing. Rape used to be a property crime. Like marital rape was legal until really recently in the scheme of things. And we've got a system that was created when women, might as well have been slaves. So those other rape myths are, like, I struggle with them constantly. It's really hard to reason with people that think that way because there's just a fundamental entitlement issue there.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we should talk about is when it comes to rape myths and perfect victims, there's a really big blatant who gets believed and who doesn't, and that's when intersectionality comes into play. Yeah. When we live in a country where First Nations women are totally disproportionately affected by rates of sexual violence and by institutional abuse when it comes to responses. So they're overrepresented and underserved, and that also goes for victims of colour, migrant
queer people,
women, queer people, people with disability, all of I hate it because they're just listed as like older women. You can individually go on just we could spend hours talking individually about each one of those categories and how dire it is that our justice system does overrepresent and underserve the people that most need help from it. Anyway, that's important to keep in mind whenever we're talking about these myths, who they disproportionately affect. And ultimately, when it comes to the victim, whose stories are we believing and are we platforming and whose stories are we undermining or
do we never hear about
in the first place?
They don't make headlines. They don't, when I had somebody comment recently, and these are the ones I have a lot of fun with, this man left a comment saying, I wish female perpetrators got as much attention as male perpetrators. And my response was, did you miss the 10 podcast shows that were made about Erin Patterson last year?
Literally.
And so the idea that we are, that we're having any of these conversations really productively has to rest on this idea of intersectionality and how we're addressing them and who we're addressing and who we're championing and representing, because we know that there were 77 women killed last year. I can't name all of them, but I know who Erin Patterson is, right? Isn't that interesting? And I can't name all the men who murdered those 77 women. But again, I can name Erin Patterson.
Yeah. It even makes me think of, sort of pivot, I think about the Epstein files and like Ghislaine Maxwell being the only person in jail currently.
But I will even have people ask me, because I've been making commentary recently about where are all the men talking about Epstein? Where are the providers and protectors? Like, we're not even just talking about women, we're talking about children.
Yeah.
These are,
also not just talking about abuse, we're talking about cannibalism. We're talking about crazy
cabal kind of
things.
Stuff, right?
What's the threshold where the speaking up kicks in?
Right? Like stuff where we were all sort of rolling our eyes a few years ago going, oh my God, this conspiracy. It's just, we were talking about the wrong people. There was a conspiracy. We were just pinning it on the wrong people.
Yeah.
But I will still get questions saying, well, yeah, you want to talk about all the men. What about Ghislaine? I'm like, how much more in prison would you like Ghislaine to be? We've talked about that. That's been addressed. And we don't even have the names of, the identities of all these men who have committed these crimes, who are running major institutions, who are running major areas of government, if not the entire US government. We have people who will never be held accountable. And one woman who is exactly where she should be, by the way. That is not to say that Ghislaine isn't precisely where she should be, but she's not the only one who should be where she is.
Yeah.
So it's that's been my observation, is it's the constant deflection, and rape myths are just a part of it. It is the constant trying to whittle it down to, we don't want to talk about this at all. And what's interesting is that in the short time that I've really been having these interactions, because I started in mental health advocacy, eating disorders for 13 and a half years. I stumbled into this because I wrote a poem. And sort of took on another really fun conversation about really hopeful, sunshiny things. What does that say about me? Anyway, so my observation has been that they're always the same talking points.
Yeah.
It's always the same rape myths.
Yeah.
It's always the idea that what did she do is one thread. Another thread is what about false accusations?
Yeah.
What about the rate at which men's lives are being ruined by false accusations?
With no regard for the lives ruined by the potential harm.
Yes, and also what you taught me when we've had a conversation about this previously, which is that there are reports sitting there which never get pursued, which get lumped into that very small statistic.
Yeah.
It is already a small statistic, but what is actually sitting inside that statistic is not a bunch of evil women who are just trying to destroy men's lives. And it's also not just women who would be sitting in that statistic as well. It would just more likely be women. So it's all of these go-tos, and it doesn't matter how many times you share your sources. It doesn't matter how many times you come back with peer-reviewed research, because that is actually not the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to diminish the conversation down to please stop talking, which is why, you know, so much of our time spent in this space just feels like you're being gaslit all the time.
Yeah.
Because you are having conversations with
you
people.
are.
Yes, you are, like mass gaslighting,
Yeah.
where you're putting information in front of people and they're just saying, it's Darvo. They're just like, that's not
Yeah.
real. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this now. And then it's on to the next thing. And so you're constantly chasing this pointless conversation.
Deny, assault, reverse.
Attack.
Deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender.
Bingo.
I was like, deny the assault. No. Deny, attack,
Yes.
reverse, victim, offender.
Yeah.
Darvo. It's just like it plays out all the time. It's the oldest trick in the book and it's
Yes.
so easy.
So deny that it's going on. Deny that sexual violence is this, you know, this horrific.
This horrific thing, and definitely deny that it happened to you.
Yes. Deny that you're part of the problem by, you know, either just not participating in the conversations, or you may be a much more nefarious part of the problem. Reverse it to, well, what are women doing? Like
Yep.
all these terrible women who are, you know, falsely accusing. Then the men become the victims because why aren't we talking about men's mental health? And then it all gets lumped on women in terms of, well, if it is a problem, you need to fix it. You need to fix our problems too. So, yeah, it's...
Ugh, what a bore, what a chore.
Yes, but that's why I think that's part of what I try to do, is to have those conversations with men, not to change their minds, but just to hold up for women the sort of swathe of people we don't talk about. We sort of understand how we can identify people who are abusive when they are overtly abusive.
Yep.
It's very often covert before it's overt. And then sort of our genuine allies. And then there's this big section in the middle of what I call like dangerously indifferent men.
Yes, I love
And there
this.
can be dangerously indifferent people, but I'm also talk about dangerously indifferent men where, yeah, it is holding up these examples of this might be this nebulous experience you're having interacting with people when you talk to them about your lived experience or the macro issue of sexual violence, and you're just getting this sort of brick wall response. It's not because you're not saying it properly. It's not because you're not being
It's
nice
not you.
enough. It's not because you're not providing compelling evidence, research, whatever. It's because there is an incentive there for it to not be a productive conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point. Tell me more. Dangerously indifferent, because I love this and I could listen to you talk about it till the cows come home. Do a spiel.
Well, it came from, as many things do in this space, it came from my own lived experience where I'd always had these interactions. I would have interactions with men who I really respected, very often family friends and male relatives, where we would talk about cases like, say, Brittany Higgins, or we would talk about, you know, somebody who we knew personally within sort of our family's orbit. And it would always be me having to make the case for, but if you just understood, then you would advocate for this. And if I can just say it properly, and like I'm a pretty smart chick and like I'm pretty logical and I've got all this great information.
And I'm likable and I can get through to them.
Right. And then it would even come down to sharing experiences I'd had of assault or harassment. And even that apparently wasn't compelling enough to take up any kind of, space in the conversation that was advocating for me or anyone else. And then at the end of 2019, no, that's not true. At the end of 2020, I experienced a sexual assault from somebody who a dear friend of mine had introduced me to. So my male best friend of, at that stage, like 13 years, had introduced me to this person who was part of a couple who we knew. They had a new baby. And we went to dinner at their place, had a few drinks, did this, sensible thing, and stayed the night. I was put up on the couch, lovely, and woke up to find this mutual friend assaulting me. And when I told my friend who had introduced me to this person, as far as I know, he believed me. But he then over the next few months, or about the next 9 months, increasingly distanced himself from me and aligned himself with this person who he'd probably known for about 2 or 3 years. And this friend of mine was like a family member. My mother even saw this person as a family member.
Yeah.
And it was additionally heartbreaking because the other context he had was that at the end of 2019, my father had passed away from prostate cancer. I took care of him in America for 3 months before he passed. Got back and the bushfires hit the south coast where I was living at the time. My mum had an ankle fusion surgery, so I went straight into carer role again. And then in the following May, I found my grandmother passed away in her home. All of that to say, I had already gone through so much loss and so much trauma that the idea of losing my friend, I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle, even if it was a different kind of loss, I just could not withstand it. And so I tried to explain it away inside myself just over and over again. And then when I would try to distance myself from this person, he would come around and make his case for, why he still wanted to be my friend, even though everything to the contrary was sort of surfacing in terms of his behaviour. I would see him spending time with this person who he knew had assaulted me whilst distancing himself from me. And he would ask me to explain what happened over and over and over again and kind of tear open that wound and like show him the trauma. And I was like, we don't have a term for this. What is this? I know what the assault
What is this fresh hell?
Right? I know what it is to have friends who are allied and supportive. I don't know what to call this because this, in some ways, feels more abusive than the assault. Eventually distanced myself from that person, no longer had that person in my life and will never again. But it was those reflections of, this feels like the most damaging part of what happened to me. And when I then was fortunate enough to go through trauma therapy to process that wonderful 12 months I had, when we got to the assault, it wasn't the assault we were processing. It was the dangerous indifference. And that's what made the indifference dangerous, was that it was so harmful to my mental health and was such a source of pain. And so we can't just underplay the thing that we don't talk about, because obviously the abuse and assault is such a violent thing, but there is a violence to turning away from that and co-signing it and abandoning somebody in it and still wanting to be called a good guy.
Yeah.
That's the biggest insult. Is the other part of the conversations would be, he would want me to assure him that he was a good guy. So we have all these men out there who feel entitled to this good guy label and they're not doing anything to earn it. So I had to give them a name. And dangerously indifferent men, as soon as I started putting it out there, the feedback from women was like, that's what this is. That was my brother denying my abuse, or it was my friends telling me, we don't want to break up the friendship group, you've just got to get over it. Or
reporting a social suicide.
Right. Or dad saying, that's my best mate and
he would never.
There is a danger to that.
Massively.
It's malignant.
Police have a name for it. It's called an aggravation of assault. And
Yeah.
The pain of a world determined to look the other way aggravates an assault immeasurably.
Yes.
And then when the part of your world is someone that you have known and loved and trusted for such a long time, like the ground slips away beneath you. It is like indescribable. Like, I haven't told you my, because I have quite a matchy experience with a very, very, my best friend in the whole world, like the man that I constantly say, I will look for him first in the next life.
Yeah.
Like, in no matter what form, like I love that man. Oh my God, did my world crumble to pieces when he didn't believe me, and when he made me prove over and over every detail. Let's go through it one more time. How could this be? Are you sure this? Are you sure that? And I know he's done it now to other women who, you know, I don't even know their names, but I know he's done it. And I just remember thinking, okay, well, it's a pattern, so at least it's not just me. It's not about me. And also, but it's me, and you're this to me, and how could it not matter if it's me?
Yes.
Which is, I mean, it's shit either way. But it is seriously, seriously not to be underestimated. And it's not just mental health, it's physical too.
Yes.
And it also ends up, those attitudes, they end up in police testimony and courtrooms, and those people sit on juries.
Yep.
It is seriously something like bystander behaviour. Dante's Inferno, you know, how there's a special place reserved in hell for people who do not like make decisions or moral decisions when they're due. It is just, for me, even now, Rapist 2, it is his friends.
Yes.
Because I just wanted to help him. Something was wrong. They're really lucky he didn't have a knife, you know, and maybe next time he will.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to help him, and I could not understand why they didn't want to help him too.
Yes.
And, you know, one by one they blocked me. Like before sending me nasty messages. And then, you know, it ripples out like you're some contagious thing until it's all your girlfriends too, of course, because it, you know, doesn't discriminate.
No.
But for me, it was just like bystander behaviour
Changes you.
Oh, it's like you're the only reason we're here. You enabled it. If you had responded, like he went from expressing such disgust and despair. I was worried the man who assaulted me was going to end his life.
Yeah.
He was so ashamed by his actions. And then we get to a place where a party was hosted in his honour the day trial ended.
Oh, my God.
What happened? What happened in that time? What did your friends say to you? They are the problem.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, of course, you know what I mean. But like, yeah, it is something that is, I could not rant about it enough.
Well, it's all those, this is the thing, is that at the centre is obviously the perpetrator who is responsible for their behaviour alone. Mm-hmm. But then there is the co-signing. And when people talk about, you know, well, recidivism and, you know, why would anyone be if there was any hope of rehabilitation, which I'm just never that convinced with these kinds of crimes, that there is a hell of a lot of, you know, wiggle room there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not a psychologist. I can't say. But in my observation, and partly because why would they?
Yeah.
Why would they? As you said to me, it's effectively been decriminalised.
Yeah.
Why would they? At every level, not just the legal level, but socially. And we're pack animals, right? Our main key driver is belonging, because belonging is safety. And so if you are able to cause harm to somebody else and you're sent the message, you still belong, you're still physically safe, mentally safe, socially safe, regardless of your behaviour, why would you ever change? Mm-hmm. Why would you ever do anything differently? And then the flip side of rejection and isolation for the victim, who then does change. You know, you do become more isolated. You do become more cynical.
I'm a shell of myself.
I remember I went through a period where, like, I'm somebody who repurposes anger. I think I use anger and rage quite well.
As a tool.
Yes. I was so full of it, it was poisoning me. I got to the point, and my mother, I call Cersei Lannister. She's terrifying, right? If you come for her, it's one thing. If you come for her kids, it's another. She's terrifying. I've got a little strand of that. I'm not quite as powerful as Louise. But I remember saying to her one night, if I saw the man who assaulted me and my friend, the dangerously indifferent man, and I could only choose to run one of them over.
I could rush one of them.
It's like the opposite of the trolley problem, you know, the ethical question of
Who
like,
shall
do you
I
hit the kids or do you
actively
hit the
run?
baby goats? And
Yeah.
it's like, I want to hit someone in this situation. I'm not thinking about preservation here. I just want to pick my favourite of who's getting hit. And
They
obviously,
both deserve it. Who am I coming for?
disclaimer, I would never actually do
Don't
this.
condone violence. It's not the answer.
But in terms of that was my way of expressing, this is how poisoned with rage I am, and I have nowhere to put it. And for people like you and I, we have some outlet, right?
Yeah.
Where I put it somewhere now where I feel like I have a healthy expression of it. I should never have been put in that position. Because, you know, we shouldn't have to go looking for like, oh, well, we've built advocacy and community. And it's like, well, I would like to be
Sisterhood.
I would like to be like writing books and be tending to my veggie patch and being like a whimsical lover girl. That was never going to be my destiny because I'm, you know, teeming with responses to men on TikTok. But like it changes you. The wrong person is changed by it. And the person who should be incentivized to change by consequences just get to continue as they are. Because on a legal level, on a personal level, who is holding up a mirror going, we don't accept this? I mean, shame is not something that we should be encouraging in people, but shame as an emotion does actually have an important role.
This has a biological purpose.
Exactly. Guilt and shame help you redirect.
So I'm sitting at Tama and this guy's sitting like on the rock below me. And me and my friend at the time, me and my best friend Nick are like, we don't know what to do. We're just like, oh my God, an opportunity. I don't know what it could be.
Yeah.
And we call my mum and we're on the phone and we're whispering into the phone with like, you know, our sunscreeny, salty face kind of sticking to it. And we're like, Mum, so-and-so's sitting below us. What do we do? And she's like, oh, have you got a shoe? And we're like, yeah. And she goes, okay, you willing to sacrifice it? And I'm looking at Nick going, how much was your shoe? Because he collects like archival high-end like fashion items, items of clothing. And he was like, it's pretty expensive. And anyway, she's like, you got a rock nearby? She's like, put the rock in the shoe. And I don't want you to throw it. I just want you to drop it. We obviously did not do this.
Yes.
Flagging. And actually while we were even having this hilarious phone call, which in and of itself was the catharsis I needed, the boy left. But she's like, I don't want you to throw it. I just want you to drop it on his head or
Mum's
just
a
near
lawyer.
him.
She's not gonna mislead you in terms of what's at the cusp of legality.
And she goes, okay, this will be the good bit because it wasn't the dropping of the shoe. It was you hit him with the shoe and then you go, I'm so sorry. And mind you, this man does not know what my friend Nick looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd remember me because it's really convenient to just, you know, have shoved this right down and repressed all of his emotions around it maybe. And by this time, we'd been waiting in a queue for like 2 years for trial.
Yes.
I don't know if this man would remember me, even though if I even see someone with a similar periphery out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, the stomach does the thing, the drop thing. Anyway, Mum goes, yeah, drop the shoe and you go up to him. You send Nick because he doesn't know who Nick is. And you go, I'm so sorry. My shoe just like has this habit of hitting assholes. Because what a confusing thing to be like a man I don't know saying sorry and then saying you're an asshole.
Yes.
Like it was just, it was funny. And
We love Mum.
He'd left before we hung up the phone. But yeah, it's never them.
Never.
It's the people around them enabling it. Like I had another friend, he used to call them slime. We're here because of the slime.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
yes.
Like all the people that just justify it away and don't want to get involved or pick sides, knowing that you're picking a side as soon as you say that.
Yes.
Slimy.
Well, this is the thing is like neutrality is a choice. And
it's not a benign one.
And it isn't really neutral because you're abstaining from the obvious answer.
Yeah. So are we pro-rape? It's like, and then I get in trouble for saying that.
Yes.
Well, what do you mean? If you're not anti, what are you?
Yes. Like what can I assume in terms of your belief system?
Literally.
And I mean, I think Giselle Pellico puts it so perfectly, like shame has to switch sides. You know, the conversation has to switch sides.
Mm-hmm.
The, you know, where we're pointing the finger has to switch sides.
And what I add to that constantly is this misplacing of shame that we talk about. It is not misplaced out of nowhere. It is actively picked up from the perpetrator and put on the victim's shoulders squarely by community and community responses.
Yes. And the, you know, legal system being weaponized to keep people out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked about across an intersectional framework, that's, you know, we're only going to see certain people represented in that system.
Yeah.
And there's only, you know, less than 2% of them are ending in convictions, which is just a big, big flashing sign saying, don't bother.
Yeah.
Don't bother.
No vacancy.
Yeah.
You just reminded me again about, you know, we were talking about intersectionality and how it's all just feeds each other because you don't see any cases of, I don't know, a black victim going through, and it's really rare that their perpetrator sees the inside of a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm trying to amplify the stories of other victim survivors who've experienced sexual violence and the justice system, you can't, because media only can go forward if there's like at minimum a charge sheet. I mean, if that, like often it has to be a guilty verdict, which we know is rare as anything.
Yes.
And so it's just like we're only seeing one kind of situation, and even that situation we're totally taking apart and dissecting. Just like for funsies in the comment section, like losers, it's, what do we expect? Do not come here. You won't be believed. You won't find accountability, and you certainly won't find justice.
And it's the layers of it, right? It's the layers of complicity and indifference. But it goes beyond indifference when we've got things like, you know, Tom Silvani having his identity suppressed and Bruce Lerman having his identity suppressed, and it goes on and on and on, where it's not just the support, it's also, like the protection, right? It's one thing to be on the well, I don't want to, but then our legal system is also saying this person needs to be protected.
Where it's just like it's not like we're like fully enabling it.
Yes.
Like we are emboldening perpetrators at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And as like with our testimony, as far as like then what shows up personally, it's just like, you know, why is anyone so shocked that things are the way they are?
Yeah. Have you been living under a rock?
Yeah.
Yes, actively so, because of cognitive dissonance. Takes us right back. I want to end on a somewhat positive note. I want to talk about what you think is going to shift this, what's going to change the story. Like if culture plays such a big role in how sexual violence is understood or misunderstood, what do we do?
I think it's putting the responsibility where it needs to be. I will often have men who say, well, Mia, I am a good guy and you really put me off being engaged in this because of, you know, the way that you speak to men, etc. Or they will say, well, I'll get engaged, but like give me resources and what book should I be reading? And other women actually get a bit frustrated with me when I'm like, I'm not doing that work for you. And they're like, but here, Mia, there's one of them wanting to. And I'm like, this is the problem, is that one thing we're still doing, and it's something I'm writing about at the moment, is the last bit of free labour feminists are willing to do for men is this. Is spoon feeding, is cajoling, is if they show one little glimpse of interest, we all just fall over ourselves to make it as easy as possible for them to have an entry point into this conversation. We have got to stop doing that.
And then what if it doesn't work as well? Like
what a waste of time and energy.
Wasted.
Which is why the flip side of what I talk about is women centering themselves, which is what I think is going to be and is a huge game changer as far as incentivizing men on an individual level, as a group, and also sort of at a political level as well, is the more aware women are, the more likely they are to make choices which center themselves, which then hold up a mirror to say, this is where less and less women are having children. Less and less women are getting married or entering partnership. Less and less women are, well, more and more women are entering the housing market. We're outstripping men in home ownership, in education. That's a very clear message which says we're going to build, if we can't change you, like it is maybe a guarantee that men will continue to be violent. But in terms of what we invest in ourselves and each other, that isn't necessarily going to prevent men from behaving how they're going to behave, but we're not going to participate in the ways that we are required to for this whole system to work, right, in paid and unpaid labour. So I think there's some stuff that's shifting with women, which isn't happening because women have got together and been like, all these men need consequences, but it is the consequence of how can we be in partnership with people who vote against our interests, who don't turn up to a rally with us because women are being murdered at the rate they are, who, you know, like I will even talk to girlfriends where they know that there's a situation next door to their apartment and it's always her calling the police. It's always her checking in on her neighbour. Yeah. And that starts to get to you. So I think that there is a cultural shift that is just naturally happening. And we hear about it through the avenue of things like the male loneliness epidemic and trying to recenter men in that conversation where I think it's more like the male consequences epidemic, which is that in order for you to qualify as a friend and a partner and a member of a community, you have to participate. You have to show up for those other people in your community. Like, what good are your good thoughts if you do nothing good with them?
Everyone wants to be a villager. Yes. Like, everyone wants to be part of the village until
everyone
they
wants
have
the resources,
like,
but they don't want to be a resource.
Yeah. It's like you got to find people that are, everyone wants to be part of the village until they have to actually be a villager and actively contribute. And we must all try harder to not only be villagers, but find villagers, not people that just got, that sounds great. And then if it requires them to do literally anything, they won't engage. Yeah. We also must all try harder to be gay. I mean, I don't want to end the podcast on that, but...
Nailed it. I nailed it.
God. I say as I...
Ahead of the game on that one.
Have a doting partner at home waiting for me. I love... Of course, that's not what decentering men means, but, you know, if women are recognising that their life outcomes and life expectancy decrease with every man that is added into their life... and the opposite happens for men, mind you, which is incredibly important to highlight. Okay, we need to do something about that. Yes. Guys, that's not just like a fun fact that you spit out at, I don't know, trivia. Yeah. That is hugely defining and will continue to define, you know, the future of like our bloody population. Like, let's get all like proper scientific about it.
Well, the thing is that, you know, and like I said earlier, there are some great men in the space.
Incredible men.
Not a lot of them, but the ones who are there are fantastic. And we need more of them because they can't do it alone. But it is up to men to bring other men along. That is what is missing. Yeah. And that, I think, by some increments has the potential to build. And I think the evidence for why it's so important is a study which came out the week before last, which is showing us that Gen Z men have more conservative beliefs about gender and gender roles than the boomer generation
of men.
Than the chortlers, right? Gen Z,
what's going on?
Is outpacing the chortlers in their conservative views on women.
Scary.
Because, and you know, men will sort of go, oh my God, how's that happening? Because you didn't step up as the role models you needed to be for that generation. Because they don't have anybody to look to. And when that vacuum is created, that's where the Andrew Tates come in and the manosphere dudes come in. Because of course they want role models. Of course they want blueprints of what a man is supposed to be. Yeah. And because these dangerously indifferent men, who aren't necessarily bad guys, they're just disengaged and feel entitled to that disengagement and not having to do any work, if they're not there as a representation, then we just keep photocopying the same problem over and over again with each new generation. And that's where the point of difference is for me. Like, I would never talk about, you know, boys and, you know, young men the way that I talk about the men I talk about, because they have been let down. They have been abandoned. They have been set up to become another dysfunctional generation. of men, where we then have to go, okay, well, where do we step in and, change the problem and change the dynamic? It's going to be because an older generation of men finally say enough and step up and become that healthy demonstration for younger men. That's where the cycle breaks. And that is not it's not, you know what, guys, like, we're sick of doing the labour. It is not a job we can do. We cannot be that demonstration for young men. That is up to men to step up and do that. So, yeah, I think that there is hope. It's in the hope for women that if we invest in ourselves and each other, that we are strengthened and protected to some extent by the community we can build with each other, with centering our lives around ourselves, putting ourselves back in that main character role in our own lives. And, yeah, the hope of the men who are in the space sort of being that demonstration to other men that they need to step up and they need to join that cohort and break the cycle at some point.
Agree. Could listen to you talk until the cows come home. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And making the time during such a busy period of your life.
I'm just happy to be back, to be honest.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad, and I'm really happy to have facilitated you coming back for today. Then.
If I hadn't moved back, this would have been the perfect reason to come up for a visit.
Okay, great. I'm so appreciative. We've got so much to learn from you, and not just in what you say, but in the community you've also built around you, just of incredible people, of villages.
Yes,
I would say.
Yes,
Yeah.
Takes a village. Go and build one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess we'll end there.
If you've listened this far, you already know something most Australians don't. Victim survivors are the only people in sexual offence trials without their own lawyer. That doesn't have to stay true, but justice systems don't change because they quietly evolve. They change because people understand them and demand better. Go to withyouwecan.org to be a part of that demand. This has been What No One Told Us.